You're listening to an archived CabralConcept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stevencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the CabralConcept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back to the CabralConcept. So good to have you back with me here today. Looking forward to today's Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday show. We're going to be going over an ancient Ayurvedic overlooked remedy for weight loss and weight gain issues. So whether you're having trouble putting on weight or taking the weight off, believe it or not, it can be the same issue depending on the body type. So we're going to cover that today. I'm going to show you how it affects everything from the body's ability to regulate, to maintain a healthy body weight for your constitution, for your dosha, no one else's, but for you, and also how it also affects inflammation, right? We talk a lot about MTHFR. We talk a lot about all these different regulatory pathways that we need to stay inflammation-free or just at a normal, healthy range of inflammation. Because after all, that's what it's all about. It's about maintaining homeostasis or equilibrium. We need some inflammation in the body that allows our body to repair, to break down cells that are no longer serving us, to remove that waste, but also not too much that we have an autoimmune-based issue or too much cell destruction. So a healthy, functioning body knows how to stay balanced. That's essentially what we're talking about today. So what is this overlooked ancient Ayurvedic remedy for weight loss and weight gain? Well, it's something that I've alluded to on previous shows, and it's this. Let's talk about people that have difficulty keeping the weight off. Let's talk about that first. But again, you'll see how it plays into those people that are trying to gain weight. When you have difficulty taking the weight off, meaning that you've gone on diets that are low in calories, you've gone on intense workout plans that have had you working out 4, 5, 6 days a week, and you're still not able to lose the weight even with an hour workout per day. Well, what could be the issue? We've spoken about before hormonal-based imbalance. I'm not going to talk about that today. If you want to learn how hormonal imbalances that affect the sympathetic nervous system, so the HPA axis with your adrenals, as well as your thyroid, simply tune back to previous Cabral concepts. Just go to stevencabral.com/podcast. Today's podcast, number 1027, if you want to check out the show notes, stevencabral.com/1027. We're going to be going over, again, a big overlooked issue that I myself, I'm guilty of this. If I go back 15 years ago and I'm just looking at myself, really looking at really detailed, fine-tuned nutrition and personal training and body transformation and strength and conditioning, all those things. One thing that we were never taught for sure, even in advanced nutrition, is the fact that a client that's trying to lose weight may be suffering from poor dietary absorption. So when you give them the best whole foods in the world, they are still not able to absorb all of that great nutrition. Let me break this down. This is so important. I had someone email me or direct message me. I'm not exactly sure. We'll just say they DM me. They said, I don't understand why we can't just heal through whole food. And I said to them, because I was there myself, so I said, listen, same boat as you, 15 years ago, I was an idealist. I get it. The problem is this. After many years of stress, whether it be alcohol use, whether it be Advil or ibuprofen, or whether it's pharmaceutical-based drugs, maybe it's proton pump inhibitors, right? Maybe it's some type of acid blocker, acid reducer. What I'm talking about are different things, even birth control, that begins to weaken our digestion. Antibiotics is a huge one. What happens is this. Over time, we don't know it. It's going on inside of our body. That's why I'm such a big advocate of lab testing, right? Because we can't see it happening. You might feel a little bloating, might feel a little indigestion, might get fuller easier after meals, might get tired after meals. So a lot of people don't make that connection with weak digestion and feeling tired after a meal? Well, what can happen is this. If your body doesn't have the proper amount of enzymes, hydrochloric acid, remember, it's not your enemy, it's your friend, making enough hydrochloric acid to break down your proteins, make enough hydrochloric acid to turn the food that's being broken down in the stomach into a low enough pH so that bacteria can't fester, and so that when that food moves through the stomach, through the gastric valve, into the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum, when it moves through there and it has a low enough pH, then the liver will say, okay, here's some bile to meet that low pH because bile is a higher pH. So we have a low pH, somewhere around a 2 or a 3 for the acid. We have a higher pH, somewhere around a 9. 8.8 or so is typically what it's stated at. Now, those two meet, it cools the acid, and it breaks open and emulsifies all the food particles, especially emulsifying the fat. So now, that first 10 inches of the small intestine, we're able to better break down and begin to absorb the nutrition. Your body does not care whether it's a Brussels sprout or whatever it is. It does not care about the name of the food. Just like your body doesn't really care about the exercise. It cares about what it's doing inside of the body. For example, when we're eating collard greens or we're eating any of those dark greens, we're getting a lot of B vitamins, okay? So that's great because your body says, okay, these collard greens are nice. But what I really care about is the iron and the B vitamins and all the other great nutrients that I'm getting from that. So what your body needs to do, because it can't use collard greens, can't use them. It needs the end products of those collard greens. The amino acids from the proteins, smaller fatty acids from the fats, although very little, and it needs all of the glucose from the carbohydrates, because that's what your body's going to use, right? It's going to break it down to fatty acids and glycerols, and it's going to break it down to sugars, monosaccharides. You've got disaccharides. It's going to start to break them down into usable chains of sugar. And it's going to break those proteins down into amino acids. And yes, vegetables have protein as well. That's what your body can use. Well, the problem is, after years of alcohol consumption, whether it be college or after, birth control is another one. Antibiotic use through childhood and maybe even into adulthood. What else? Ibuprofen, Advil, any type of NSAIDs, any type of acid blockers, whether it be a prescription such as Prilosec or an over-the-counter such as Tums, any type of antacid. What does it do? Well, it weakens digestion. When we weaken digestion, we put the good food, the whole food into our body, and you say, great, here's all this good food, go to work, right? When we're trying to lose weight, a lot of people eat salads. They do a salad and then they put in some type of olive oil, which is great. They put in some vegan protein, or they put on some fish, or they put on some meat on top of that. You say, okay, I'm good to go. All right, pretty good choice. I can get behind that. The problem is, who's going to break down all of that cellulose structure of some of those leaves, or all of the cellulose and the cruciferous-based nature of all these great vegetables that we should be eating, right? And where's all the stomach acid that's going to break down this vegan or paleo-based types of protein? Where's all the bile that's going to break down all the fat, especially people doing a higher fat diet? I won't make fun of keto-based diets today. We'll give that a break. But think about it. You know, if you're taking in 70% of your diet from fat and you don't have the hydrochloric acid to prime the pump and allow that bile to drop down in the intestine, could end up with loose stool or worse. Right? You could end up with fat and chains of fat moving through in a leaky gut, intestinal permeability, into your bloodstream, carrying along with it what? Bacteria. Carrying along with it sugar. Carrying along with it anything that is pulling from the gut. And the worst part is that when you have that much fat, and if you do have intestinal permeability, now those sugars or those proteins are bound to a fat. Makes it much easier to pull into adipose tissue or your cells, because it's bound to a fat. Easier to absorb for anything that has a bilipid membrane or a fatty membrane. So that's why we have to look at these things. We have to look at it from a nutritional biochemistry standpoint. We can't just say, oh, let's just drop our carbs because we get bloating when we eat carbs and raise our fat through the roof. Well, what does that do for long-term nutrition. And today's main point is this. When someone has reduced digestion and they're eating all these great foods, the reason why whole food can't always solve it is because the digestion is so weak that when you put the good food in, the brain still gets signals that it's nutrient deficient. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again and again, is that your body and your brain want nutrition. It wants nutrition. What does that mean? It does not mean carbs, protein, and fat and calories. Those are your macros. Sure, it needs those. It can run on those. But I've seen people run a lot more efficiently with higher micronutrient-dense foods. And that's because their body gets the nutrition that they want, and it doesn't even need as many of the calories. Now, it still matters. Not saying that it doesn't. I've gone over before how to find out your basal metabolic rate, so you can check that out on a previous podcast. But what matters at the end of the day is this. I've seen this over and over, and that was a big breakthrough in our practice, let's say about 12 years ago, is that for that one out of every, let's say, 100 or 200 people, that where a precise nutrition plan and a precise exercise plan wasn't enough, what we had to look at was, yes, hormone levels. That was a discussion a different day, but also weak digestion. So actually, by increasing exercise load, what happened to the person? Well, it increased not just their calorie needs, it actually increased their nutrient needs. Because when you break down muscle tissue, it needs to be repaired. Well, how do you repair it? You don't just repair muscle tissue with amino acids. That is a falsity that has been taught to the fitness community. Now, again, I love the fitness community, and personal trainers are my people. So what I want to say is this. Your body needs more than just branched-chain amino acids, right? And amino acids in general to repair. Your muscle tissue is also comprised of glucose. You actually need some glucose or some type of carbohydrate, right? But it's going to break down to glucose to repair the muscle tissue. And your body is so smart and was so well designed that it will actually use protein to make sugars as needed. That's how well our body operates and why we cannot remove carbohydrates for the long term. I can get behind it. I do it in my practice. About 21 days, we use the Dr. Cabral detox, or we use an elimination diet, or we use some type of low-carb formula. But after that, we ease them back in so that we don't destroy metabolism, so that we don't destroy hormones, or thyroid, or leptin, or ghrelin, or anything else in the body, right? Because your body needs those. If we reduce our carbs, we also lose out on a huge macronutrient group, yes, but all the micros that come from our fruit and vegetables. So what does Ayurveda say? Well, it says this. If you're on a low-calorie diet, or you go low in one macro, and your digestion's weak, you are not going to get the nutrition. Forget about the calories. You're not going to get the nutrition you need. So what happens is your body will refuse to lose weight. It will go into its own survival mode. And what else will it do? It will actually increase appetite. So you can tell your clients, eat more of this particular food. But if that particular food group does not contain the micronutrients that your body is looking for, it will never be satiated. And that's why a lot of people can fill up on as much fat as they want. They're still looking for a cookie. They're still looking for some sugar because their body says, okay, we'll go on a low-carb diet, but we need some carbs, right? We need the nutrients that come from those too. So Ayurveda says this. You may not be getting the nutrients that your body needs, or you're getting the nutrients that you need, but your digestion is so weak. You're weak in the stomach, and you're weak in the absorption from the intestines. Maybe you don't chew your food. That's certainly part of it, right? Chew it up to a paste. But we need to make sure that from a digestive perspective, there's enough, at least enzymes from the food or taking a daily digestive enzyme. And daily digestive enzyme will allow you to break down the whole food that you're eating to a greater degree. Great. But what about the intestines? Well, even in Ayurveda, 6,000 years ago, they knew about bacterial overgrowth, right? They knew about candida overgrowth. They called it ama. And they called the weak digestion agni, right? Agni. A-G-N-I, if you want to look it up and do your Ayurvedic research. Interesting how they use different words talking about the same thing. So a lot of a lot of the American Medical Association, we'll just put it that way, they like to discount Ayurveda. They call it a pseudoscience. Completely ridiculous, since that's what all medicine is based on. Ayurveda is the original form of medicine. And when I was over in India multiple times, there were pharmaceutical reps from basically every company that I could think of up in the foothills of the Himalayas, where one of my locations was. And they were studying the herbs and they were studying the plants with the Vedas, which are the Ayurvedic doctors. Why were they studying them? Because they know that they work. And they're going to try to patent them to then use as a pharmaceutical drug. Why a patent? Why not the herb that we use? Well, because if you own a patent, no one else can copy you. So you can make all the money. You can charge a ridiculous amount, like $20,000 for medication, $100,000 for some of these biological drugs. Completely insane, right? I mean, my goal is to help people, and I would love to say that that's what the American Medical Association is about, but sometimes it doesn't seem that way. It seems a little backwards when we're not looking at the root cause. If someone has high stomach acid, again, that's according to American Medical, you have to look at the reasons why they might have acid reflux. One of those could actually be that they have too low stomach acid. That in the presence of low stomach acid, there's a muscle at the bottom of the esophagus called the LES. It stands for the lower esophageal sphincter. When there's low stomach acid, that muscle will actually stay open. Its job is not to stay closed all the time. It's to stay open when the stomach is basically not doing its work, not producing as much stomach acid. Well, under stress and a lack of certain minerals, etc., your body won't produce enough stomach acid. When that happens, you could be eating, lower esophageal sphincter stays open, you get regurgitation, you get gas coming back up and burping, and you can also have the food sit there longer in the stomach and you begin to ferment. Well, little stomach acid is there can actually then start to come up along with that gas, along with that fermentation. That's just one reason. But the thing is, there's only about a half a dozen reasons. Hiatal hernia, low stomach acid, higher stomach acid because of histamine-based issues. But you can always figure it out. There's always an answer. The problem is, what do? We give a proton pump inhibitor. We give some type of acid blocker. Medical literature says you're only supposed to be on it for 2 weeks. The problem is, medical school did not train our medical doctors to know what else to do. So they don't take their patients off their acid blockers after 2 weeks. Many people are on them 20 years, right? And the reason they don't take them off is because they don't know what to do and they don't want their patient to suffer. That's admirable. I understand that. It's still not correct, but it's admirable that they don't want their patient to suffer. So it's not the medical doctor's fault ever. It's what they've been taught. Problem is, we don't teach it, right? So we have to look towards natural health. And that's why when we look in Ayurveda, we can see improved digestion, remove the candida, remove the H. pylori, remove the SIBO, remove the parasites, remove whatever is there that is not allowing you to break down fully your food so that you can absorb what? The calcium, the magnesium, the zinc, all the things that we need for anti-aging. How about your B vitamins, your B12? You can't manufacture your B12 or your other B vitamins in your intestines without the proper healthy bacteria. And that's why that led me to say in the beginning, MTHFR-based mutations, right? Everyone's talking about MTHFR, and we're talking about doing this and doing that. But the truth is this. If we had a healthy gut and we were eating foods that were high in B vitamins, we would be able to better absorb them and really take care of that MTHFR-based issue. And there's so many people out there right now who don't really have the proclivity towards MTHFR-based inflammation, meaning like they get inflamed more often, more brain fog, more prone to autoimmune, poor exercise tolerance, can't detox well, don't do well with alcohol, etc., right? Very more sensitive people. Well, trust me, even if you don't have a 70% mutation or blockage of that MTHFR gene, what happens is this. With a poor diet or poor digestion, you can't absorb the proper amount of B vitamins. We see it all the time with our organic acids tests. Again, we don't own any lab tests. We just run them for people. And I will link up the lab test today. Just go to 1027. But on the organic acids test, which is a urine test, you can actually see how deficient people are in B vitamins. The problem is this. even without the MTHFR gene mutation, people can still act like they have it. And the reason is that their digestion has gotten so weak they can't absorb. Over time, this will lead to an inability to keep the weight off. And for those people who have trouble gaining weight, they simply can't absorb all the nutrients that they're eating. They can't break it down and then be able to make it turn into muscle, make it to turn into mass for the body, turn that high vata state into a little bit more kapha, more anabolism. And I've worked with many, many people in my practice. The problem is this, it doesn't happen overnight. So I want to share with you now some things that you can do over the 12 to 16 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, as you're repairing the digestive system. The first thing that I can't recommend enough is running the digestive-based tests. That's the organic acids test, the stool test, and the food sensitivity test. If you can't run all three because of finances, I totally understand that. I can appreciate that. We have to start somewhere. I would at least start with the organic acids test. Number 2 would be the stool test. It tells you deeper things, right? What's going on way inside the body. And then number 3 would be the food sensitivity. Now, run whatever one you want, because again, at the end of the day, this is about you. But if you run one of those labs with your local functional medicine practitioner, again, they have to know, they have to specialize in digestion, or you run it with us over at equilibriumnutrition.com, and you get my personal recommendations for you, and you get a call with one of my health coaches to go through that. Either way, we want to look at what's going on. Now, if we're not able to do that, we're not able to run any labs because of the cost. Again, I understand that. So let's work on something else. Maybe what else could we do that's a second place to that? It would be this. We're going to start to use digestive enzymes at meals, and we're going to start to do that smoothie in the morning. Why? Our job is to turn that food into mush. That's literally it. Because the more mush we can make that food, right? I talked many episodes ago about something I call the fork test. I taught it to my integrative health practitioners in the diet module. But the fork test, you can look it up. You can just go to stevencabral.com/podcast and type in fork test. And you can see the previous episode where I talk about that if a food doesn't pass that fork test, it's going to be harder to break down your stomach. Make it easy for your body. Another easy way to improve digestion with your smoothie and whole food meals would be to add some spice. Add a little bit of ginger, one of the best ones you could add. Add a little bit of black pepper. Anything with heat, anything with spice. If you do that, it has 2 ways that will help you actually keep the weight off. One is it'll help you better break down and absorb that food. Number 2 is that it actually has a thermogenic effect. It has a heating effect in the body. And as we know, kapha, or the endomorph body type, has more of the colder-based condition. They call it a cold digestive system. Spice, pepper, ginger, anything like that adds heat to the digestive system, which helps with that absorption. Okay. The other thing is this. Only eat 3 meals per day. Give yourself, and again, this is something I've changed 15 years ago, is you don't need to eat every 2 hours. Can it work for competitive bodybuilders, figure competitors eating tiny meals every 2 hours? Absolutely. I did it myself. Okay. But let's talk general population. People that aren't looking to be on the cover of a magazine, but they want to get in great shape. The best shape for their body, and I would say healthy shape. I would say most people trying to get on the cover of a magazine, you could say that body's in great shape. But internally, healthily, I'm not sure. I work with a lot of those people. Not always the healthiest because of what you need to do to get in that type of shape. But 3 times a day, about 4 hours, could be even more between meals. Allow the stomach to completely empty. Allow the blood sugar to come back down. Allow yourself to feel hungry and then eat. Also, do not overeat at any one meal. Remember, most of us listen to this podcast right now. We don't have to worry about when our next meal is. It's something to truly be grateful for. Because when I was in places like Sri Lanka and in India and in China, I saw what it was like to not know when you would be able to eat next. And it was shocking to me because I'd never truly experienced that up front. Of course, living in Boston, there are people that are homeless. But at the end of the day, there are shelters and there's a lot of people who give money, et cetera, et cetera. Now, is that all that we should do? Probably not, right? But there's food to be had. When a lot of times in India, it was just a terrible state. We'll leave it at that. But for us, we don't need to overeat at a meal. We're going to eat a couple hours later. It's an important one to look at. The more you pack the stomach, the weaker the digestion gets. Another one is this. Allow yourself to start the day slowly, right? You don't have to eat right when you wake up. I typically recommend for most people an hour to 90 minutes to 2 hours after they wake up. Start the day slowly. Now, let's say you have low energy, you have low adrenal issues, you're hypoglycemic, different story. We're not talking about that right now. What we're talking about is allowing yourself to ease into that day. Huge one. Started doing this, it's a game changer. No matter what you consider your schedule to be for eating, try to stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bed and no later than 6 to 7 at night. Now you might say, well, it doesn't matter. I can eat at 10 o'clock. It helps. It honestly helps. And this is coming from someone that's working in the real world. Now you could take 20 people, put them in a lab, and set it up so they're only eating between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. at night. And you can make that work. I'm talking about over time for an endomorphic body type. I'm talking about a specific body type. And that's why, again, I will never do this, but you could put me on a lot of these scientific studies that are done, and I could game the system to show a result for whatever the drug company or food company or whatever wanted. And the reason is I can base it on body types. And I know how they'll react because it's very straightforward. And Ayurveda has taught us this for many thousands of years. So what I want you to do is I want you, if you're having difficulty gaining weight or losing weight, I want you to focus on your digestion. There's almost no one that comes into our practice that we are not looking at digestion in terms of energy issues, right? Brain fog, autoimmune, and yes, weight gain, weight loss. It's so important. This is irregardless of whether you feel bloating or not. You don't necessarily have to feel bloating. A lot of people don't. But there can be real digestive issues in the stomach and in the intestines. Remember, it's about 28 feet. It's meant to be the outside of your body, even though it runs through the inside. It's meant to absorb the good and get rid of the bad. So what I would love you to do right now is either start to work the process, space out the meals, add more spice to the food, use digestive enzymes, right? Do the smoothie in the morning, use the daily nutritional support. This is why I explained to this person, listen, you don't need to do everything forever, but while your body's having trouble absorbing nutrients, give it something that's just basically straight nutrients. We use the daily nutritional support powder. We use the daily fruit and vegetable blend. It's powdered 100% of all your vitamins and nutrients for the day in the daily nutritional support, 15 grams of already broken down pea and rice-based protein, vegan-based protein, and then your 22 organic fruits and vegetables. We know that you can't eat 22 organic fruits and vegetables in a day. We're giving you the powdered version of that will allow you to get the phytonutrients from those foods, just adding it to water. So yes, you should always eat whole food. That's the predominance of your diet. But give your body the nutrients that it needs. Allow your digestive system to begin to heal. Run the organic acids test. Run the stool test. Run the food sensitivity test. Space out the meals. Stop eating the 2-3 hours before bed so that you can just properly digest before going to bed. And then allow that food to move through the intestines. Allow your body to have the blood sugar come back down. Allow your body to tap into body fat for the next 12 hours. Hopefully from 7 at night to 7 in the morning. Allow it to do that. This is what nature intended. When it starts to get dark, we stop eating. Humans living outside, we're not nocturnal. We can't see in the dark. We were around a long time before fire. Hard to see in the dark. Time for bed. The sun rises, time to wake up. Time to start the day. Ease into the day. Probably not going to start the day, off with a gun. You're going to just start your day. You're going to start to forage. You're going to start to look for food. That's the point. I want us to begin to get back to nature. I want us to begin to live again like humans. Now, I don't mean that you need to go out and you need to start to hunt and gather. We have the food. We're very fortunate. We're very blessed to have this at our disposal. But that doesn't mean we should overdo now. So hopefully today's show is helpful. Love to hear your feedback. I'm always there on Instagram. You can always leave a comment. I read every single one. You can just go to my name, Stephen Cabral. You can go to CabralSupportGroup.com, which is our free private Facebook group. If you have follow-up questions, we can help you there. And as always, the show notes are each and every day at that podcast number. And today was 1027. So just go to StephenCabral.com/1027. However we can help, that's our goal. That's our mission. Just let me know. And as always, if you found this show helpful, please do feel free to pass it along to anyone else you believe it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to ask you this question. What if I could teach you in just a couple of hours how to transform your thyroid, hormones, adrenal, cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight loss, energy, mood, brain, pregnancy, anti-aging, or many other health-related issues? After 20 years in private practice, after seeing and overseeing 250,000 client appointments, I sincerely feel I have the real-world data and have found the answer you've been searching for. So what I've done is spent hundreds of hours of my own time refining what you need to know in order to uncover your underlying root cause health issues and then begin to rebalance the body and bring it back to a state of robust health and wellness. I'm going to teach you exactly what I do in my private practice so you can understand how you got here and now what you need to do in order to heal. You'll receive all of the important success checklists, protocols, and even ways to customize it to make the program fit your busy life. And you'll get all of this at a fraction of the price. Let me save you the time, money, energy, stress, and frustration of not knowing what to do next. Instead of reading dozens of books on the topic and seeing multiple practitioners, I will condense everything that you need to know in just a few hours of video tutorials that you can watch and listen to anywhere. Together, we will make this healing process an enjoyable one that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I wish you all of the best of health and happiness, and I hope to be able to guide you on your healing journey through my Health Results Accelerators. Simply choose the health imbalance you're currently suffering from, and by the end of today, you'll know what went wrong and how to get well again. I guarantee it. For details, head over now to StephenCabral.com/courses.